I'd like to bring on Prabal from Avail to tell you all about Liquid Apps. Please give him a big round of applause.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining, and thanks EthGlobal for organizing these amazing events time and time again. I would today would like to talk about something that we are introducing as Liquid Apps. I want to kind of again take Austin's cue here and say more about some of the what to build, but also a little bit about what are the tools that are there to actually enable you from getting your flight ticket to the private jet journey, right? So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So I think I don't need to prime this crowd too much, but Web3 is really changing and very, very fast. If when I was, there attending some of these events around, I would say 9 years back, Web3 was completely different. It had very little options, very little tooling, very little kind of information out there. But not only that, the adoption right now is just breathtaking. I mean, you must have seen all the recent announcements all across, and you must have been, thinking that there's a lot of FOMO out there. There's a lot of FOMO within me, within probably a little bit about among all of you, but there is a lot of FOMO across the entire financial space and Web2 all around. The entire tech space is thinking what to do with Web3. And within that kind of traction, what we are seeing right now is there's a lot of chains. So if you are a developer, you must be thinking like, okay, every day or every week, there is a new chain that is launching. A new chain coming up with its own primitives, with its own tooling, with its own virtual machine, with its own compiler, with its own language, with its own block times, with its own decentralization factors, with its own sequencers, etc., etc., etc. And how, as a developer, do I know which chain to build on? And within these chains, my user needs to now navigate a lot of bridges. So when I'm trying to attract a user, the user's journey is not seamless if my choice of the chain is bad. So my responsibility as a developer kind of increases. My responsibility to the user kind of increases because I have to think about their user experience. I just cannot think about only my developer experience and argue that the users are going to come. It's not. And this is the scenario, right? So you have more chains, which leads to liquidity fragmentation, which means that the assets are just lying all around for the users. With more liquidity fragmentation, you will have the UX complexity kind of increases. The UX starts degrading because the user has to go through multiple hooves to actually use your app. That means that you do some sacrifices. Everything comes with trade-offs, right? And sometimes those trade-offs come down to security trade-off. And when you do some kind of security trade-offs, it leads to weaker composability. Because the moment you start trading off with security, the moment others start staying away from you because you have made a lousy choice on security, right? So that's the liquidity flywheel that we have been able to create in this multi-chain economy. And that's where we want to come in and say like, no, this is not the best thing to do, right? We can do better. But sadly, this is as a developer for you, this is the experience that you have to go through today. So the step one for you is to think about, okay, I will now choose a chain. What does this chain have? The chain will have a lock and mint style, bridge from one chain to other. So if you are building on Base, Base has this native bridge from Ethereum to Base. And that is how that the chain gets liquidity, ideally. And then your app will get only the liquidity that is as available on Base, right? So your target customers squarely are a subset of the customers of Base. Okay, you cover that, but then what you want to do is you want to now abstract the native bridge complexities, right? No one uses native bridge. If a user is using native bridge of Base, they are having to wait for 7 days of withdrawal. Think of what that means for your application. Your application user has to wait for 7 days to get their funds if they start using the native bridge. Of course, no one uses that, right? So what you do is you go and start looking for liquidity bridging based onboarding. Great. Now you have onboarded using liquidity bridges, but then you want to have solvers who actually talk to your applications and enable you to have the user onboarding journey being simplified. Okay, you do that, and you have partners like, let's say, Across, like Particle and others who let you cover that. Before that also, there are pure liquidity-based bridges. Before that, there is Wormhole, Across, etc., which try to help you all along the way. So it's not that I'm trying to give you a grim picture of what the state of Web3 is. There are solutions. All of these solutions work really well. Kudos to them for able to help us cover ground here. But we want to do better. So this is where we want to talk about a concept called liquid apps, and this we want to enable through Avail Nexus. Essentially, we want to categorize what does a liquid app mean. A liquid app might mean like, you get liquidity from any chain. Like you can get users to onboard any other chain from your application itself, or get liquidity from some other application back to your chain. It can also mean you communicate across multiple chains and your app sits on top. Think of Avail. Avail today has, I think, more than 10 deployments, if I'm not wrong. And what that means is for Avail to actually scale, it's a lot of pain that they have to go through. Every chain is unique. Each of their deployments have to be audited, have to be thought about in terms of what the language is. Their contracts, let's say, is in Solidity, but now they are there in Aptos, I think, if I'm not wrong. So Aptos is a very different VM, and so on and so forth. So that's the application journey. I mean, we, of course, if we are to realize the vision that Austin set for us to go in private jets, then we have to think on the Aave scale, right? Because Aave is the biggest application that you can see today. So that would mean that we want to be able to capture the user set of all these chains, not just one chain. And you also want to think about how to make the user journey seamless. So it's not only about liquidity, it's not only about communication, it's not only about user assets, but think of the friction that it brings to the user. If you are an application, like, I don't know, maybe today last week it was all about Aster, I think. So if you are some user even, like forget the developer, if you are a user and you are thinking like, oh, am I missing out on Aster? Let me just go and use Aster. Just go and use Aster and see the UX, right? The UX on Aster is amazing, but to get to Aster is the issue, right? You need to have funds here and then bridge to there and then bridge to there. This is unless you, of course, have assets readily available on the base chain, right? And that's what we want to change. We want to basically short circuit the entire experience. We want devs to be able to deploy applications on any chain of their choice, while the user set to be available across multiple chains. That's what we want to enable. And how do we enable that? Is we are focusing, we want to take care of all the backend, all the steps we want to take care of, where you will give your user a simple SDK that you will integrate into your front end. And the user is now able to see their unified balance across multiple chains. They're not having to think about which asset they hold. They need to think about which asset they want to ape on. So think of it like, I think a few days back I was looking at Gauntlet, and the Gauntlet front end has something like a 20% APY on a stable coin. I forget what stable coin because it's hard to keep track of which stable coin today is giving the highest APY, right? But if I want to ape into that particular vault, I have to start thinking about the asset, right? Because I don't have that asset. And I don't know, what kind of hooves I have to cross to get to that asset. And that's where Nexus helps. The SDK will take care of getting the swaps done on chains that are supporting those applications in the cheapest way possible through the bridges which are already existing in that ecosystem, right? So that's where we want to get to. So single deployment, tap into liquidity and users from n different chains. We want to actually live to the, the tagline that we use, that is build once, scale everywhere. We want you to build only once, but be able to scale to every users that are out there, irrespective of their allegiances or irrespective of your allegiances. So as a developer, I have been, developing, and I'm seeing, I've been attending these hackathons, and, sometimes we are talked about, that we are chasing a bounty. I don't think it's wrong, right? Like we have to also go and think about how do we get that first $1,000, right? What is the first reward that we get? So there is nothing wrong when a developer chooses a chain or an application or a tool set or something based on some grant that they got, because that is their prerogative, right? But it is important to have the right tooling to be able to cater to users irrespective of which grant you got, right? Or which airdrop is the user hopeful of. We want to be able to cater to all these communities. So this is, I would love to take that analogy. Sorry, Austin, if you mind that. But this is me buying my ticket. This is my private jet, right? And I'm not kidding, really, right? If you are building, let's say, Base is one of the best examples and best developer tooling, best ecosystems, best community, everything, right? But the amount of liquidity that you can hold, suppose you're building a stablecoin app on Base, just by tapping into Nexus, you get almost 13x more user liquidity just by tapping into Nexus. Because Base, although it is amazing, but the amount of stablecoin that is there on Base is incomparable to something like Ethereum, right? And the user does not care about all of this. They should not care about all of this. If the entire financial rail is coming on-chain, then this vision cannot be realized by doing, clan-style, chain-level heuristics, right? We have to think bigger, we have to think grander, and that's what we want to enable through Liquid Apps. Okay, I think there will be enough talk. We have to see this in action. Enough promises, enough talks about new concepts every day. We want to be seeing, like, okay, can you show me what this means? So the first one that I will show is a demo on Hyperliquid that we had released some days back. Let's see it, and then I will probably go through a bit. I will try to walk you through what you saw here, right? So the first thing that I would like to point out, you must be thinking that, oh, this is an extension. This is not an extension. We wanted to inject that SDK on the Hyperliquid front end, and of course, we cannot go and change the Hyperliquid front end. So what we had to do is we had to inject it using the extension. But this is the flow, what it would look like when the SDK is baked into the front end. The next thing that happened is the user didn't have funds on Arbitrum. I don't know whether you guys realize, but to be able to get into Hyperliquid, the first thing you need to do is get into Arbitrum. And from Arbitrum, then there's a bridge to Hyperliquid. We wanted to short circuit that. So what we did is, even if the user didn't have funds, we get the liquidity from other chains. You saw, I think, 3 chains here. We support 12 plus chains today on mainnet and more on testnet. And all of them got combined balances across multiple different venues. So as a developer, this can be the experience there. It doesn't matter where the users are, they will be able to get into it. All the things will be done. There will be explorer links, so it's not like we're doing something shady here. All the things are attributable. The user will take consent. You have to authorize whatever you have to do. We are trying with 7702 to make that as simplified as possible. But of course, each one of these things happens in a non-custodial manner. So we are not taking funds custody while doing this. Next, I want to show something else. The same implementation, but in a slightly different format. This was Avail. And on Avail, you don't have the funds on that particular chain. You bring those funds from others. As a developer, one of the major concerns is user retention. The moment your user leaves your browser screen, there's a big chance that they will not come back. So the moment you force them to use a bridge, to do the bridging and then come back, half of the time you get so frustrated just navigating those bridges that you don't even come back, right? Like how many days have you, I don't know whether you guys are all using it regularly or not. If you are, then you are better than me. I use it almost once every week, like all these experiences just to try things out and for my own personal finance, but it's so hard. Like you have to think about which bridge to go on, what is the chain that is supported, what is the asset that is supported, where will I swap it? When I swap it, will I get better liquidity on the source chain or the destination chain, right? Whether doing that, do I have the corresponding stablecoin, for example, or the native token, or is it gas full experience? Where do I get the gas tokens? I bridge it and then I see there is no gas token. Now I have to go to gas relay, get the gas things, and so on and so forth. You know it. I do not need to explain things to you. But this is the kind of experience that we want to enable. Multiple chains, all the balances shown in one place, all the funds being able to accumulate it in one place. That's the power of Liquid apps. We want to offer superior DevX. There's a headless component, so it can be in your own branding. But if you want to play with our inbuilt components, be our guest. There are UI components built in. It definitely takes a few hours. And this is not kidding. I'm not saying a three-liner integration, although it is a three-liner integration because I know you guys are educated power devs, so I cannot just fake it through. It is actually a three-liner integration, but to be able to show its full potential, you have to do a few more changes. Like, you have to show somewhere that what the unified balance is, or what their chain native balance is, and things like that. So, but overall, it is actually only takes a few hours to get it integrated. We do not want to fight on solver fees, but the solver fees are actually very, very competitive. That is, the entire experience is extremely, extremely fast. That is the main reason why we didn't want to use native bridges or existing bridges. We wanted to use Liquidity because that's the fastest way to get funds done. All the security risks reside with the solvers. Solvers are educated players, sophisticated players who are doing the security hedging, so to say. So the user is not exposed to the risks of all the bridging that is taking place. Only the solver is doing so your users are safe. We support both EVM and non-EVM chains. We are expanding to Solana very, very soon, but we are also already support some of the more esoteric VMs like a Fuel VM and so on Ethereum base layer. And then there is resource locks via vault contracts and secure deposits and et cetera, et cetera. So everything you know about intents, it's all there baked in. These are some of the UI widgets. You have a Nexus deposit, transaction, everything we will be able to, easily integrate into your front end without much of trouble. But if you want to go through the entire trouble and show your own branding and show your own user flows, use the headless. That's the Nexus effect. 12 plus chains is what we support today. We hope to offer you no pain, but no pain, no gain, as Austin and Karthik has well established. But get in touch with us if this excites you, and looking forward to talking more on the sidelines. Thank you.